I'm Joyce Hornady. You might say accuracy is my business. I make bullets.
You are listening to the Hornady Podcast.
Thanks for joining us and enjoy the show.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Hornady Podcast. I'm kind of a host, Preston Lentfer. Across the table, in his normal seat, Seth Swarzik, host of the podcast. But we are going to mess with you Type A folks a little bit, both visually and as you're listening, because number one, I introduced the podcast. Seth does that.
Usually.
Can't help it. And we're starting on that camera.
Yeah,
That's
turntables
really
have turned.
Gonna mess with them a little bit.
Yeah.
At least the Type A folks. But wanted to bring you on here by popular demand. We've been doing some rifle build series. And
enjoyable series as the host. It really has. I've learned a lot from a lot of other builds.
well, and you're a technical guy, right? You love parts and pieces. You love building rifles, and that's got to be fun. The hunting guns are the ones that are doing the best. So
Understandably so. There's more hunters than PRS shooters.
Absolutely there is. So by popular demand, folks have asked to see your 7 PRC. Now, we all, for the most part, have 7 PRCs, and we don't want to do too many of them, but when they ask for the host 7, we should probably do it.
We're happy to do it. And to be honest with you, I thought this podcast largely unnecessary because Jaden's 7 PRC build, phenomenal. You can't, there's nothing, you might be able to massage good to glad to happy in some different areas for different people, but by and large, you're going to see a very similar rifle build here.
A lot of them look the same, in the office. A lot of them have shorter barrels. Stock choices might be a little bit different, maybe a different optic, but for the most part, short 7 PRCs are around
They're
here.
in vogue right now. Now, I thought
that is not in vogue.
if we were
the word in vogue.
Is Vogue still a magazine?
I can't answer that.
I can't answer that. So, well, anyways, when we were like, well, maybe we should have one of your rifles on, it was like, well, I've got a lot of other cool rifles. 122 Creedmoor build that I think is really cool. So if the listener wants to see Hot Rod 22 Creedmoor build, we got one of those in the Stallion stable as well.
We could do yours. We could do my nighttime 22 Creedmoor.
Might want to talk. Yep. Let us know.
Let us know what you want to see. But this one is all about your 7 PRC, and man, it fits the hand nicely.
It does.
But at the heart of every rifle is the action.
Yep.
So tell us what we got working with on the action.
I got to start broad level, a little bit higher level than even the build itself, because this rifle was built almost in this exact configuration, barring just a couple little, minutia type points. It was built entirely in my brain many, many moons before the 7 PRC was a thing. So we're really rewinding now,
the clocks.
We're rewinding the clocks quite a bit.
Back to the tech days.
Probably 2019, 2020 time frame.
Oh, okay.
2019, maybe. Yeah, 2020. I knew I had built a 7 mag. You're very familiar with this. Hot Rod 7. I mean, it was a nice rifle, and I was doing it on a shoestring budget, and I made some choices that were good, not great.
Yep.
And I was never truly happy with it. It was a fine rifle. But when I really was like, man, what do I really want? I built virtually this exact rifle in my head. Now, 28 Nosler came out, and I thought, woo, here we go. Come a-running, boys. I thought I was going to end up building this in 28 Nosler, and then once those prints hit Sammy, and I was able to look at cartridge dimensions, the size, the twist rate, and all this stuff, it's like, no, this isn't the answer. I'm not going to be able to have factory ammo as a solution all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't really like how overbore it was. And that was really when it was like, oh, okay, that's good, not great. I better start working on the 7 PRC from a development standpoint when I was still working with Jaden. So this rifle was still built in my head, but it just wasn't the right time. I was going to see what kind of flushed out because I thought maybe I'd build it in 7 mag. Once the 7 PRC got legs and I got Jason to at least turn a blind eye.
You made the legs.
Yeah. Once I got Jason to turn a blind eye to releasing the cartridge and naming it the 7 PRC against some other potential names, then it was like, okay, now I'm ready to build this rifle. And ultimately, the overarching, what I was really after was there is everything I'm going to do can be all encompassed by if this rifle bullet cartridge combo is elk to 700-800 yards and in. Now, am I going to shoot an elk at 700-800 yards? Man, it would have to be a very, very, very perfect set of scenarios. And even then, I'm not sure. It could happen. But if it can do that, if it's got the terminal performance and the capability to do that, then it can do everything closer and everything smaller. So that it was really my ultimate North American rifle. And in my opinion, one of the ultimate, or one of, there's a bunch of them, but one of the ultimate 7mm PRC builds, in my opinion. It fits so nicely. So that's what I was after, was I needed a cartridge that was purpose-built to shoot the 175 ELDX. That's where the standard SAMI 28 nozzler and 7 mag fall a little short, because you have to go with a custom twist rate and a custom hand load to seat them out a little bit longer. Not enough head height to run that specific bullet.
And let's mention, we make ammo for 7 mag and 28 nozzler.
We do. It's
if
great.
you like them, we've got options for you.
We do, but they lack the head height
They do.
to shoot the 175 ELDX unless you push them out. And I love to hand load, and I hand load for this rifle, but I don't always hand load for this rifle.
We don't have time anymore.
Yeah, so that was the overarching. And like you said, the heart of every rifle is the action. And I've always had an affinity to the Stiller line, specifically now with the new ownership and the guys at Casper Outdoors and Horizon Firearms. Derek's an awesome guy. If you're looking for an action for your next custom build, check out a Stiller. But I've always been attracted to the Stiller Predator line. And then when I was like, okay, what do I really want in the action? I like the extended bolt handle of the TAC line. So this is a Stiller TAC 300 action.
Yeah, and I will say, when I first got into this industry, Jerry Stiller had sold the company, moved on, and I never really knew the Stiller that it was made to be by the founder. And I will say, as I was fondling this in the office the other day, from what I can tell, it is back to its smooth glory.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah, the guys at Horizon and Casper Outdoors, they're making just outstanding actions right now. So the Stiller TAC 300, the difference between the TAC and the Predator is you just get the larger bolt handle. This isn't swept, and it's just a little bit larger bolt handle. And this feels more natural to me, having ran so many competition rifles in the PRS.
And it goes without saying, magazine's empty, there's nothing in the chamber. Go ahead and close that bolt. Let's see how far it kind of sticks down there. Wow.
It does.
It sticks down, but not out an incredible amount if you were packing it.
Yeah, it's not been a problem. And for me, manipulating that bolt on follow-up shots is just so natural.
Well, it's just right. It's right there.
Yep.
Yeah. Very, very nice.
Love that action, and it was an easy choice when you're building a long-action Magnum.
And maybe we should talk about one of these specs right away, because people are going to ask, Seth, you built a 7 PRC. It's a Magnum. I see carbon fiber and more carbon fiber and more carbon fiber. What does it weigh in total?
So as you see it right here, magazine inserted, bipod and everything, this system is 10 pounds, 6 ounces.
Not too. That's less than mine. Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty manageable. When you take the suppressor and the bipod off, it's really light,
Really
of course.
light,
But I really wasn't going for ultralight. There's definitely choices I could have made to make this thing ultralight, but I didn't. I didn't want an ultralight rifle in 7 PRC because it's gonna buck. So
Absolutely will. But 10 pounds, 6 ounces, you can carry that almost anywhere. You're a young, strapping man.
yeah, I used to be, and I will carry this anywhere. It's such a capable rifle. So, and then threaded onto that Stiller TAC 300.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because that's one of the reasons it's so light. What do you have for a barrel on there, and then how did it get attached?
Yeah, so the barrel is a Proof Research, and this one is a blank. I did not order this as a pre-fit from them. This was a blank, and the reason I ordered it as a blank is because I wanted a Sendero light.
Okay.
I didn't want the full Sendero, which is just a little bit bigger diameter. So the smaller diameter, it's going to shed some weight, and I went with a 20-inch finished length. And that's because putting a suppressor on there, which we'll talk about, and I knew I'm going to shoot some of the most efficient bullets in all of ballistics. I'm shooting hot rod slippery 7mm. Let's let the bullet do the work. I'm going to get him out of the muzzle at a decent velocity, but that bullet's going to carry its velocity downrange because they're so slippery. So that's a 20-inch Proof Sendero light, and I had my main man, Devin, helped me chamber this one up, and it's been a shooter, to say the least.
Yep, and we left the ends of it in the the stainless steel finish, kind of to match the action. I see.
No, that was just because I just am lazy. I don't know. I just never cared to do that.
There's some special engraving on there. Let's save that for the end, though.
Sure.
But yeah, if you look at it, the end of the muzzle is probably about right here on the suppressor. So having it be 20 inches probably makes it like a 24 and a half inch.
Yep.
Total length.
And it's balanced really, really well. When you're carrying it on a sling, you're carrying it just with your hand underneath the rifle. It balances really well with that barrel length.
So do we want to move into what that barrel does, or let's go through the components in total?
Well, maybe we could go through the components in total.
Sure. So hanging off the end of it.
So that is the Thunder
kind
Beast.
Of a common theme.
Yeah. Thunder Beast Ultra 5, which is also a common theme. That thing, the way I have it configured right now, I'm using the Area 419 system. And for anybody out there that's unfamiliar and you use a lot of muzzle devices, you need to check it out. Preston, you're invested.
Mine was on the podcast as well.
Yep. You put a little adapter on every barrel.
As well. Yep.
And then you put a little adapter in your suppressors, whether you have 1 or 50. And then you can put any of those suppressors on any of your barrels, regardless of thread pitch, which is really convenient. 2, you can put a muzzle brake on there using that same adapter, which is convenient if you so choose. And then the third thing, if you ever feel like, oh man, I can't get that suppressor off, well, it's backwards thread, so you're not going to thread anything else off in the process, which is convenient.
Yeah. Nothing against Thunder Beast. I love their suppressors, obviously, but I don't want to have to fight those tiny little shims anymore and cut myself to pieces.
I've cut myself to the bone with one of those. It was vicious.
So that's a really nice feature, and it's tapered. The adapter is tapered.
Yep.
So concentricity is just absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, repeatability too is I take that suppressor on and off willy-nilly, and
it goes back.
Yeah, it goes right back.
Yep.
So, definitely a big fan of that. And then, I just really like be able to run 2 suppressors. I've got an Ultra 7 and an Ultra 5. So if I'm hunting front country stuff or just,
Seems like we all do.
Yeah. Then
we didn't know what we didn't know.
Yeah.
We got the 7s first.
Well, it's a little bit quieter, honestly. And then I went to Africa with this rifle. Not going to take the suppressor with me. I could strap a little 2-port muzzle brake on there. Bob's your uncle.
Yep.
When hunting the wild, challenges abound. Leave nothing to chance. 7mm PRC from Hornady.
Okay. What is it all? What is that barreled action sitting in? An attractive looking stock for sure.
It is an attractive looking stock, and this is one of the components that I had pre-selected before I knew anything else. And this is a Gunworks Magnus non-adjustable stock. And the reason I really like this is way back in the day, I handled a Gunworks LR1000.
Sure.
Now, early on, those stocks were made by Macmillan. You couldn't get those stocks outside of buying an LR1000. And at the time, I certainly wasn't buying an LR1000. But the grip angle was just perfect. It just felt right. And I instantly fell in love with that grip angle. And I've not found another stock that is that ergonomic in my opinion. So when it came time to build the rifle, Gunworks was offering stocks separately, and they still do. They don't have the LR1000, but they have the Magnus, which is a really, really close.
Which probably has some more features than the LR1000 that we'll get to.
Yeah.
Grip angle for sure. The palm swell's pretty nice on it, right?
Oh, it's just
for.
And I don't have huge hands. It just fits right.
Regular size hands. It's absolutely fantastic.
And the little thumb shelf.
Yep.
That's a big one. We in the precision rifle world, we're all shooting thumb right behind the safety, basically, and this just mates up perfectly.
Yep. So if you move backwards, I believe it's got a little bit of a negative comb.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, the negative comb. So under the recoil, it handles it really nice.
Yep.
Easy to keep cheek weld. It's really one of the better shooting 7 PRCs just from the whole mechanics once you break the trigger of the recoil impulse and getting right back into the
Straight
scope
line
after you shoot.
recoil.
Yeah, it handles it really, really nicely.
And then I noticed QD flush cup on the back.
Of course, yep. Running flush cups. I usually run a Hornady, just a classic leather sling on there with the Hornady logo. But I flush cup that on there because usually I'm not with a sling. I don't use a sling very often. I usually have one with me should I need it, but usually I'm sling free.
Okay. So what do you put it in out of curiosity? Just strap it on the pack or carrying it?
So if I'm packing in, I'll throw it on the pack. And then if I see an animal I'm actively going to stalk, a bedded deer, let's say, well, yeah, I'll bust the sling out and carry it that way if I have to, go a mile or two or whatever.
It's really odd asking these questions like I don't know the answer.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But let's move forward. What I thought, I don't know if they were the first to do it, but that recessed Picatinny rail up front.
Yeah, they definitely got that right. The Picatinny rail, they remove the material on the stock so that it's kind of inset so that it's smooth. So if you don't have a bipod attached,
It's not going to catch
it's
on
not catching, right?
stuff. Yeah.
So, and then rear of that, the 4.5-inch Arca rail. And that's something that all of us...
Do you like those?
Oh my gosh. Arca Darka on everything. And that's simply because we hunt so much with a tripod. And shameless plug, # not sponsored. I use a Really Right Stuff Ascend 14 with the integrated Ascend head, primarily for hunting. So I can be spotting with my binos that have an Arca on there. Pull the binos out, put the spotter in.
Yep.
Take the spotter out, put the rifle in. And it just makes it so convenient. And so, yeah, hunting rifles with an integrated Arca rail now is really a non-negotiable for me if I'm building the rifle for myself.
Yeah. And that kind of seems to be becoming the standard.
Mhm.
I'm trying to convert Judd, the other camera guy,
Yeah.
more and more into
We gotta
let's
get Judd's
Arca
Ruger
stuff. Yeah, we do. But, for the longest time, camera stuff was never Arca Swiss.
No.
And
No.
Manfrotto heads and stuff like that. So it's a conglomeration.
Yeah, but the Arca has really become the standard as it goes.
Do you know what the stock weighs on its own?
So I don't, because when they send these stocks out, there is a little bit of finish work to be done by the gunsmith, or in this case, me. So there is some material that had to be... I have a Dremel. So I had to, put this thing in the lathe and finish putting in the bottom metal inlet, stuff like that for the action. So I'm going to guess it's right around 30 ounces.
Okay.
Might be upwards of 32 ounces, something there in that 2-pound range.
Now, does this have pillars or has it got a block?
This has a block.
Okay.
Yep.
Wow. That's
and that probably adds to a little bit of that
Sure.
weight. Again, I could go lighter, but that wasn't the goal.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of becoming a little bit of an industry standard is that full block
Mm-hmm.
adds so much rigidity in the back. Inlet for bottom metal, M5, I'm guessing.
Yep, M5, and I really stewed on this one for a while, going
Okay.
hinged floor plate or M5. Now, M5 with the AICS style magazines, that's the competition side of me coming out. And if you would have rewound the clocks maybe 5 years ago, I would have gone hinged floor plate. And the reason I didn't is these bottom metals are very common now, and I think Hawkins makes one of the best ones out there, completely flush fit, right?
Yeah.
So that's an M5 pattern, but it's flush fit without the magazine. You throw the magazine in and you've got 1/4 of an inch sticking out of the bottom. It's just smooth, and I still get the convenience of a drop box magazine.
And this is their Hunter magazine, I believe, correct?
That's correct.
So it'll take, I don't have calipers on me right now, but
Oh, it's
What?
long. It'll take a
300 PRC?
300 PRC, 3.850.
Wow. And another shameless plug, hashtag not sponsored, but want to give a little love to Josh Clough at HS. Mine has got HS bottom metal on it. Sticks out about the same.
Yep.
About the same length, but BDL inlet.
Yeah. So if you've got a stock with a BDL inlet, dude, the HS is a no-brainer.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's a bunch of good companies out there, and these are just what we use for our builds, but we've certainly got friends elsewhere, and so this is in no way a sponsorship type episode.
A lot of people make good things.
That's true, they do.
Now, you've been known to say you don't need a super light trigger for hunting.
That's correct.
What are we running for a trigger, and what's it set at?
That is a Trigger Tech primary.
Okay.
So nothing crazy on the trigger. This is actually an Independence Day special primary. I got it
love
on the
those.
sale for $120.
It's like a forever sale.
Yeah. Now I've got a Wheeler digital trigger pull tester. Tested it back in the office before we came up here. 2 to 2.1 pounds.
Oh, well,
So,
yeah.
And really, I've not needed more or less than that, to be honest with you. I can think of Africa shooting animals when it's 80 degrees outside, and I can think of I killed a giant mule deer buck at 0 degrees. And
Killed a whitetail buck at 3.
with this,
Not with this one.
oh
but
yeah, I did
it
do
could
that.
be done.
So I'm just saying, though, in those instances, one, pretty hot. 2, can't feel any of your extremities, right? So I think 2 pounds for me is really the sweet spot.
Yeah, and personally, big fan of the trigger shoe of the Trigger Tech while hunting.
Yeah.
It's got those ridges on it,
Mm-hmm.
and if it's particularly cold, you can kind of pick that up a little bit better, I think.
Yeah.
Rather than something flat and smooth.
Yeah. You can feel the purchase that you have on it. Yep, I agree. And then I've got so accustomed to those Trigger Tech triggers. I ran a Timney for a long time, ran a couple Jewel HVRs, and I'm really looking forward to trying those new triggers from Rise. They got some Remington 700 and clone triggers out. But the Trigger Techs, we started running those, probably 5-6 years ago, something like that. And I run almost exclusively Trigger Tech specials or primaries.
Yeah.
It's just the easy
Well,
button.
and you've been known to run the field, I believe.
Oh, yeah. I definitely have done that. My muzzle loader, I put a Trigger Tech field in, and you can't really buy those from Trigger Tech, but somebody buys a factory rifle with a Trigger Tech trigger in there,
You can
like
find
say
them as takeoffs.
a Christensen,
Yeah.
then it's and those only go down to about 2.5 pounds or so, but gosh, for a lot of
Like
applications,
we talked about, they feel lighter than they really are.
it's a great trigger and quickly became one of my favorites. And just like, Joe mentioned in his 280 Ackley podcast, he runs the HVR because he's been running the HVR since 2007. And
For the age of a raccoon.
yeah. you just get something that you like, it, you feel it, and it just feels right. And that's what it is
You
for
start
me.
to get used to things, for
Mhm.
sure. Now, I know you had to spend a lot of time on this. I don't see a Picatinny rail on top of that action. What do we got
No.
for scope rings?
No, right. So on the optic side of the house, this rifle has worn many optics.
Sure.
When I first built it, this wore a Vortex Razor LHT 4.5 to 22. Talk about the perfect long-range hunting scope. I mean, that thing is just awesome. First focal plane, fantastic reticle.
The reticle you know and love.
Yep, the reticle I know and love. 30 millimeter tube, hyper light, lockable turret, capped windage.
Fantastic glass.
Good glass. I mean, it really was just flat out awesome. Loved that scope for a long time. I've since bounced that scope over to another rifle, and this scope came out from Leupold. It's the Leupold Mark IV. And one of the reasons that I like this Mark IV over the Mark V, this application, is it's a 34 millimeter tube. Now, going back to the rings, these are Tally one-piece rings and bases. And the biggest diameter they make those in is 34 millimeters. So on a Mark V, like a 3.6 to 18, it's a great hunting scope, couldn't get those tallies in 35. So these are a one-piece. They come down. It gets that scope just so far down close to the barrel. It's easy to get a really good cheek weld because that scope is so close to the barrel and the action, which is why I went with the Tally one-piece. Plus, it's a little bit lighter. Paired that up with the bubble level
Oh, that's nice.
from
touch.
Tally right there in front. Doesn't cover up my elevation turret. And nice low profile. And if I am going to take an extended range shot, especially when I'm out beating up steel, I have a level that's integrated. Really convenient. Can't say enough about that little setup right there.
Well, and when you're trying to build the ultimate hunting rifle, let's say, having the one-piece scope rings, that if we omit another screw-on point,
Yep.
You're just adding to the reliability of the whole system. So no Picatinny rail for rings to screw on and potentially come loose.
Yep. Just trying to limit that moving
Well, and
parts.
it just always seems like if you can get those on a hunting rifle and you put your cheek on the cheek rest, scope's right there.
You're lined up. And yeah, that's really what I was after. And that one rifle I bounced that Vortex LHT over to is wearing a pair of Tallies doing the exact same thing. The scope in there, Leupold Mark IV, that's the 6 to 24. And that's a pretty big zoom ratio, starting at a minimum of 6 power. But for what I'm doing with this rifle, I don't need really the 6.
Yeah, there's a lot of, I don't want to say old timers, but there's a lot of people that will argue that 6 is not low enough.
Yeah. And generally I would agree if I was pounding the timber.
Right.
But I don't pound the timber. And if I were to pound the timber, I'm going to hunt with a second focal plane scope, probably, a 2-10 or something in that type of zoom ratio, maybe even a 1-5 or a 1-6. But I'm not pounding the timber with this gun. Just not. And I'm not taking those jumping bedded animals kind of shots in the woods. So for me, the 6 on the bottom end is a non-issue. The 24 on the high end is also really unused for me. If I were to be shooting groups at 100 or 200 yards, yeah, I might turn that thing up a little bit. But as far as in the field use, I mean, I'd just as well have a 8 to 12.
Yeah.
And
maybe a fixed 10.
Yeah, right. But it is tons of zoom ratio. And the reason I went with the 6 to 24 over the 4.5 to 18 is the body of the scopes in these Mark IV lines, the 4.5 to 18 and the 6 to 24, are the same size.
Essentially, yeah.
So why not just pick up the extra zoomies? And they both come in at that 27.5 ounces. So for me, when I was doing my homework early on for hunting scopes, my cutoff is 28 ounces. It's got to be first focal plane. It's got to be mill reticle with a mill turret, locking turrets. And it's got to come in under 28 ounces. And there's only so many scopes that fit the bill. This one fit really nicely. Throw it in those rings, and I've got more scope than I'll ever need.
Well, it's kind of nice that overall, the stock, the barrel, that kind of afforded you the opportunity to go a little bit heavier on the scope. Not saying 27 ounces is heavy, but
no. Well,
for some people, it
the
certainly
Vortex
is.
LHT
22?
similar feature set is only 22 or 23 ounces. So
there's not a lot of options in first focal plane mill with all the locking stuff in that weight range. But, you could even go heavier at 10 pounds, 6 ounces overall. You've got wiggle room, I'd say.
Absolutely. And I don't feel the need to really change this thing out. As it sits, I could get a call tomorrow and go pack up and go
roll
anywhere. And this thing is, ready to roll. And the versatility was really what I was after. I can take this antelope hunting. I could take it elk hunting. I would take it brown bear hunting if I were
if you could
so
stay
inclined.
far enough away. Yep.
Well, if I'm never going to buy a grizzly bear hunt, but if I was going to, this would be the one. Unless they open it up in like Wyoming or something, if we can get that arranged and
I
draw
don't
a
think
tag.
there'd be that many tags, but
Probably not.
Find the latest shirts, hats, hoodies, and accessories that you see here on the podcast and much more at HornadyGear.com.
what reticle's in that one?
So that's the PR3 reticle, similar to the PR2. PR2's got kind of that Christmas tree, which I'm very used to. But the PR3 simplified. You just got your vertical and horizontal stadia.
Okay. And still quarter mil wind
Still
holds.
quarter mil wind holds. Yep. And that's something that Leupold did on behalf of their competitive team.
Right.
And then you start running that competitively, and that becomes kind of standard, and you understand how that works. You throw it in the hunting rifle. Simple.
Yeah. I mean, once you have done it a little bit, it's a non-issue if you're used to 2/10 holds or half mil holds, whatever have you.
Yep.
It's just another subtension.
Yeah.
Like it's in there. Just use it.
Yep. Exactly. Yep.
And so, would you ever dial wind with this, or
I could. I would
While
say I'm a little torn. I would say if it was a shot where the wind was blowing hard enough that I'm really holding some wind, I'd probably reconsider taking the shot, just because on a piece of steel it's no big deal, but on a hunt, now if it was like 2 or 3 tenths of wind, I'll probably roll that off in the scope so I can hold exactly where I want to hold. Situation dependent, because if it looks like I might not be able to get a quick follow-up shot or something like that, then I don't want to have it on in case he moves directions, whatever. Exactly. Yeah. But if it was a completely static broadside shot, big open field or something like that, I'd roll a couple tenths of wind in there potentially.
I didn't expect that answer from you.
Yeah, because it's really natural to look for the center of the scope.
Yeah.
And
We've held wind forever, though.
Yeah, that's true. But when you throw in the stress of it's
probably animal, like we talked about before, how that animal is acting dependent.
Mm-hmm.
If he's calm, cool, and relaxed, probably. Yeah, take your time.
Yep. It's been a fun rifle. It was a fun rifle to put together. It's a fun rifle to shoot. I've been fortunate enough to lay down a few animals with this thing, and I've had some friends borrow the rifle and do the same. And it's pretty gratifying to have worked on the 7 PRC project and to have this build in my head for so long, and then actually to have it built in the cartridge I helped design. It's pretty rewarding.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about one last component, I suppose. This bipod up front.
Yeah.
Most people probably haven't seen something like that. Maybe they have. I don't know.
I don't know. That's a new addition. So traditionally, this wears a Atlas, the cheaper Atlas, the Atlas V8. Those are right at 12 ounces. Runs on that Picatinny rail, and it's a great bipod. We all have several of them, and they work great. Kind of one-dimensional, if you will. You don't get as much flexibility.
Sure.
Well, Gunworks came out with the Elevate. This is the Elevate 2.0 bipod, and Neil Emery over there really talked it up, hooked me up with this one, and I have been blown away. This thing, versatile would be an understatement. This thing will go from 5 to 19 inches and still weighs 12 ounces. So I went same for same on weight, but I picked up, instead of 4 to 9, I'm 5 to 19.
Sure.
So the versatility is just incredible. I've really enjoyed that bipod. Looking forward to using it this fall. I used it on this last trip to Africa. That was my first experience with it, and it definitely earned its keep. And then, coming in now to my hunting seasons, this is going to be on there.
Well, and let's talk a little bit about, maybe we should just show it.
Great.
See if I can. So you've got two options for extension on this.
Yep.
You got your typical push button.
Mm-hmm.
And what's kind of cool about this one is, like on an old Harris,
once you push the button, you got one push.
There's only that much spring, right?
Yeah.
But this one springs all the time.
It does.
Okay. And then you've got kind of like your typical tripod leg.
Mm-hmm.
So it extends this far. And
changes angle.
It does change angle as well. I don't really want to mess with it right now, but holy cow.
Yeah.
As far as hunting goes, this is pretty cool.
This is one of the better ones. Another one that I've ran in the past and will continue to run is the Backlands. They're out of New Zealand. Ultra light. That one really, really versatile, similar to a Skypod from MBT,
Sure.
but made of titanium and carbon. So very, very light. And then another one that I don't have any experience with, but I am hoping to, is the Spartan system. That one, everybody loves that one. But for a big recoiling Magnum like this, man, this thing holds up well. It's so versatile. And it really rounds out the whole system where you can take this thing anywhere in the world and be effective.
Yeah. What's kind of cool about it, when you get into a bipod with a bunch of height, like a Skypod, obviously those weigh a little bit more than this, but they do have lightweight versions. If it gets to the point where you're struggling to be prone, you're going to a tripod anyway.
100%.
But on like a downhill shot or something like that, you can really get those legs down there. Because a lot of times you're just struggling literally because of terrain to be able to get prone and get high
that's the
enough.
struggle bus.
Yeah.
Yeah, and not necessarily shooting downhill. The big one for me is laying facing downhill, but shooting across the canyon perfectly level.
Yeah.
So you really have to get the bipod legs up so that you're laying downhill, but you got to get that rifle level to shoot across the canyon.
Yeah. There's not perfect plateaus everywhere to lay down.
No, I've shot off a couple of them. Not very often though.
Yeah.
Got to enjoy them when you get them.
Well, and I mentioned this engraving, and then we'll put a close up right now here. I see it says, say when.
It does, yeah. On the other side, it says 7mm PRC
Okay.
1 and 8 twist. This side says says say when. And so my old man, one of his favorite movies was Tombstone. And quickly that became one of my favorite movies.
Sure.
Still today. I couldn't tell you how many times I've watched the movie Tombstone. Obviously the famous Doc Holliday line, say when. So when I built this rifle, I also built my dad a clone. His has got
Very similar.
little bit different stock. His is wearing Leupold Mark V, 3 to 18, and his is a Predator, so it's got the smaller swept bolt handle, but same paint job and everything.
Yep.
But they look nearly identical. And because that was, one of his favorite movies, one of his favorite lines, and then we've all interacted where you got a guy on the spotter, and I'm ready when you are.
Say when.
Yep. So we have matching rifles and matching engravings that remind us, say when.
That's really special that they both have it. They're both identical. I mean, as far as the barrel to action go, the barrels themselves are identical.
Identical.
Correct? Yeah. So same dope.
Very
Very
similar.
HUD.
His barrel runs just a little bit slower than mine when we run the same factory ammo. I primarily hand load for this one, but yeah, it's pretty darn tit for tat inside of 400 yards. Couldn't tell the difference.
The majority of the shots,
The
anyway, I suppose.
hefty majority. Yeah.
Well, speaking of slower or faster, what is this barrel doing? What's it capable of?
So I prefer to shoot the 175 ELDX. It's why I built the rifle and why I wanted the 7 PRC cartridge to come to life. So I'm running Reloader 26, and no, I don't have any for sale, so don't even ask.
Yeah, don't even mention it.
But Reloader 26 with that 175 ELDX. This one's doing 2896.
Dang.
Yep. So right in there with, and I developed that load when I had access to our piezo electric pressure reading system. So I know I'm within safe pressure limits.
Yeah.
It is a full house load, but it is, again, well within SAMI pressure limits. 2896, Dad's runs like 2880.
Mine runs like 2850.
Yeah. So
20-inch barrel as well. So.
Yeah. So, but yeah, 2896. Now that particular load with a number of bullets that I have, it shot a 15-shot composite, 1.7 inches at 200. So right in there, about 3/4 of a minute, which for a rifle
rifle.
I'm not the best. I mean, I'm not the best shooter anyway. And it's, when you're shooting 3-shot groups and then you get up and you let the rifle go and you come back and lay down, it's hard to keep
Adding
consistent.
a lot of variability.
Yep. So it shoots really well. And that's what I've shot everything with as far as animals go, 175 ELDXs. I have shot some 180s out of here. That's just the factory ammo, doing like 2870. That shoots really, really well. I've stretched the legs on that far. What I haven't hunted with, but I have shot out of here just down in the lab, I've played with some 160 CXs and the 162 ELDX. I've shot those with 4831 shortcut. Those are running about 29.25 with 4831. If I use the Reloader 26, they're up to almost 3,000 feet per second. But I just thought, it's nice to have a little less recoil, a little flatter trajectory, maybe. Pick up some speed with the 162s for an antelope hunt or a deer hunt or something like that. Haven't shot anything with that particular load. And then the factory ammo shoots basically the same as my hand loads.
Yeah, that's what I found to be the case with mine too.
Yeah.
I remember when we first introduced it, I got some 150s to hand load and never used them either.
Yeah.
Just grabbing a box is a lot easier.
It's so convenient. And to be honest with you, the first animal that I shot with this thing was with factory ammo. And then the next week I shot another mule deer with it on a completely separate hunt in a different state with that same factory ammo. That's what the first lot number ever produced. And I still have that ammo squirreled away. My dad's got some of it as well. And I just think it's kind of cool that it's the first lot ever produced through a pair of rifles that we built to match.
Yeah, I know a guy that might like a box of that.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, got the good stuff.
The Hornady Security Fireproof Keypad Safe. With a heavy-duty 16-gauge steel body, extra-thick 8-gauge steel door, and 4 1-inch diameter locking lugs, the fireproof safe achieves a fire rating of 30 minutes for up to 1,400 degrees Fahrenheit. Both the interior and adjustable shelf are covered in a protective carpet that offers flexible storage configurations while safeguarding valuables from damage. The Fireproof Keypad Safe from Hornady Security.
Well, what else are we missing on this rifle?
Gosh, that's really it. Top to bottom, soup to nuts, however you want to spin it. It's been a good tool. It's been fun to shoot. It's been reliable. It feeds well. It carries well. It doesn't recoil a ton compared to some other bigger magnums. I'm not losing a ton. I took some numbers down here just to talk about this barrel length because that's a lot of people's questions. How short can you go? I elected to go with 20 inches over 22. Jaden's is a 22. A lot of people go with a 22. And in all of our testing, an inch of barrel is worth 25 to 30 feet per second. So I knew I was going to be running what should be 2975 or 3000. I'm going to be 2875 to 2900. And I'm totally fine with that.
Yeah.
So I wrote down some numbers for a 500-yard and an 800-yard simulated impact. And then I did the same thing, but I modified the velocity, that 50, in this case, 54 feet per second. So I ran it at the 2896 that this runs, and then I simulated one at 2950 to see the difference. At 500 yards, the way it's configured now at our altitude in today's forecast right now.
1,800 feet, probably quite a bit of pressure today, probably under 29 though.
Could be. Either way, total drop at 500 is 2.3 mils or 40.4 inches.
Okay.
Wind drift with a full value right to left 10 mile an hour, 0.6 of a mil. It's going to put me with a 0.58 time of flight, impacting with 2,284 feet per second and a little over 2,000 foot-pounds of energy.
Okay.
Now, if I bump that velocity up to a 22-inch barrel simulated velocity, I'm going to flatten the trajectory out a little bit. It's 2.1 mils. What's that mean in inches? Less than 2 inches.
Less than 2, okay.
So 2 inches different trajectory, same wind, the same 0.6 of wind, and it's going to be about 75 feet per second faster upon impact and have about 100 foot-pounds more energy. It's going to shave 100th of a second off my time of flight. So
pretty negligible.
Pretty negligible there. So then when I look at 800, which is, a line in the sand that I would never exceed anyway, I'm at 4.9 mils currently configured, 139.5 inches of drop, 1 mil of wind. Now, that's a 1 second even time of flight. And so for that reason alone, I wouldn't engage at 800 because a lot can happen in 1 second when that bullet's hanging out in the air.
Conditions would have to be perfect.
So if you bump that up to a 22-inch velocity of 2950, you flatten the trajectory out, 0.3 of a mil, which in this case, 6.5 inches. So, okay, you're shooting a legitimate half a mile, and the difference is 6 inches of trajectory. Wind, the same 1.0 mil.
Yeah.
Still impacting with about 50 feet per second more velocity, and it shaves a 100th of a second off the time of flight. So,
they're going to ask, what's the energy difference there?
Energy difference, 1,469 foot-pounds at 800. Simulated velocity would be 1,540 foot-pounds. Yep. So,
90.
Again,
80.
Yeah, nothing crazy. And when I looked at numbers like that, there's no reason not to go 20, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I'm not losing anything. I'm not sacrificing anything. If my line in the sand is 600 yards, I'm really not seeing a difference at all.
And you dial for elevation, and you have rangefinders, and you just dial for elevation. The wind is the same.
The wind's the same.
That's the one that's the anomaly.
And we've said it all, get closer if you can get closer. Well, I've been able to get a hell of a lot closer than 600 yards in everything I've killed with this rifle.
Yep.
So, biggest mule deer buck I've probably will ever kill was taken at 426 yards. So, the 7 PRC at 426 yards hits like a freight train.
Yeah. I think my furthest shot with the 7 PRC, and I think I've only killed one critter with it, was 280 yards, and I can assure you it also hits like a freight train there.
Very effective. Yeah. So this was a fun build. Like I said, I'm really happy with it. And every time I open my safe and I see it back there,
smile.
And I know it's ready to go. It's dialed in. I know where the ammo's at. It's set up, loaded. Somebody could take this tomorrow. And just a couple seasons ago, Matt Ritchie, former marketeer, fellow marketeer, he had some.
You know something we don't?
No, but his slammer bucks needed killed, and his kids had the tags. He threw his Ultra 7 on there, made sure zero was good, and they went out there and knocked down some stud bucks. So it's ready to go at a moment's notice, and that's what I like about it.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's really cool that your dad has, an almost clone of it, or a clone of it.
His stock's a little bit different. He went with an Iota Echo stock.
Yep, that's what's on mine.
Yep, different grip angle, but same paint job, and they look pretty darn similar. And yeah, it's great. I can't wait to use it this season.
Yeah, well, let's get out there. It's the day we're recording this. I don't know if we need to tell these folks. It's November the 5th.
Yep.
Probably come out right before rifle season in Nebraska in a week and a half.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good season. Looking forward to it. Now, more importantly, how do we sign off here? Are you gonna sign off the show?
To think about that. It's been making my brain hurt, which doesn't take much these days.
Let's wrap it up. How do I wrap it up?
I think you look at the camera and you say, Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Hornady Podcast. We hope you enjoyed learning about Seth's ultimate hunting rifle chambered in the one and only, no, I'm just kidding, 7 PRC. We hope you enjoyed it, and we'll catch you on the next one.